Hello and welcome to the Q&A sessions with Meeta and Tosh. Welcome everyone. And hi Tosh.
Morning, how you doing, Meeta?
I'm good, thanks. Good to see you.
You too. I like your background. Is it one of those virtual fake ones? Because that's what it looks like to me.
This is my kitchen, and for the first time, and I'm sure a lot of parents are experiencing the same thing, I've got an empty house. All my children.
Silence is golden, Meeta, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know what? To be fair, it's a two-way street, isn't it? Parents are getting sick of kids being around all the time. I bet kids are really fed up of it. Stop that. Quiet down. Stop doing that. All that sort of stuff as well. So.
We need to get back to normality, whatever that is. But kids need to be where they need to be. Parents need to be working, doing what they do. And our sessions every Thursday at 11 o'clock hopefully have given everyone working from home that little bit of connection with their business community, their people and talent management community, and we're running straight through to the 1 year anniversary. So
when is that? I can't even remember. I know it's a year ago. When we started?
We started on the 27th of March, I think. So yeah, and we've got a lot of people who've stayed with us all the way through. So hopefully that means we're adding value out there.
Yeah,
and
right.
We did a COVID checklist last week, and literally that COVID 1 year anniversary checklist is flying off the shelves. Not literally, but the demand and interest. So if you didn't get the COVID checklist last week, please put a little note in the chat box and let us know. So today, Tosh and I are going to be covering, God, what a diverse list we're covering. But
to be fair, I don't know how I've done it. This is a lot in your bag, today's topic. We've got 5 different things we're going to be covering.
Yeah.
And we'll go through each of those. Before you remind everyone what we're going to talk about today, let me do a quick housekeeping. So anybody that knows, then sorry, we're going to sound like a stuck record. But for those that don't know, we've got a chat box on the right. We answer the questions during this session. It's a live Q&A session for the next 30 to 40 minutes. Any questions, our promise is always to answer all the questions that you put in there. If somehow we run out of time or you slip one at the end and we don't get to it, we do a follow-up video to make sure that question is answered. And the second thing is we are not sitting in some sort of ivory tower.
Yeah.
Pick up the phone. Some of you actually do pick up the phone. You say, Tosh, you said it was okay to call. And I always say, I lied. And then I say, I'm just joking. And then we go into whatever the issues are. Because sometimes people just need some guidance, maybe talk about something in a bit more detail. So please do not be shy to call us afterwards if you don't ask the right questions during these sessions.
Yeah, and we have a poll on the right as well, and we've got a greetings from Joellen. Hi, Joellen. Hello to Impact Factory, and thank you for your feedback. We've been, we're all in it together, and I think that we've all helped each other through navigating through, and actually coming out of it this time. I think we all agree that this time, as we come out of this lockdown and we get back to a new normal, I know people hate that phrase, but we're going to create our own future. And coming out of this pandemic, we've learned so much. We've seen so many different factors impact our organizations and our people. So actually, a lot about what we're talking about today and what our title was, the 5 recruitment and HR challenges that an organization should be thinking about, really is all around when you're getting the people back into your world, as you're regrouping, and then you're thinking about what next. Tosh and I are going to talk about the 5 areas that we think are important to focus on. And actually, each one of these topics could have a session on its own. But we've done a poll. We've done a poll just to get your feeling for what's important to you right now. And as it stands, we've got 66% are saying diversity and inclusion is important to them. And yeah, that reflects in everything I'm reading and talking to other HR and business leaders about. Apparently 3 out of 4 employers, which align with the 66% here or thereabouts, want to revisit their hiring strategy and make sure that their diversity and inclusion approach is aligned with their hiring strategy. So we're going to be talking about that. The skills shortage will actually build into that, because that's another. So hiring faster is our first one. Diversity and inclusion is our second one that we're going to be covering. Skills shortages is our third one, and how to tap into a passive candidate market, which then links into building a stronger employer brand. And no surprises, all of our topics support each other. And the final one, which I think is your bag, Tosh, is how we adapt employment contracts for 2021, because we know that remote working and mental health and just the challenge of people being so displaced has been a big eye-opener, hasn't it? And people coming into the working world again have different requirements now.
And more than just how to do it, why? Why should we be doing those things? So won't take too long, but I just want to give everybody a good idea of what they need to do. It's not difficult to do it, but it just also kind of puts certain protective measures in place if things go a bit south, which is what contracts of employment are about anyway, actually. So that's what we'll be touching on there. You know, obviously we also had Brexit. There may be other changes that need to be made to your contracts of employment to reflect that. But we'll go through all those things as we go through the topics.
Yeah, and please do use the chat box for questions, for ideas that you have, or even things that you'd like us to cover, because the topic about how can we have an employer contract, support flexibility, but still give us control was a request from one of our clients. So when we do follow-up calls with you, when we check in and see how you're doing, and if there's anything else you need, that was something that came up. So we do listen. So if you're thinking, oh, what about that? Just drop it in the chat box or drop us a note afterwards on an email, LinkedIn, and we'll make sure we cover it.
So give us give us what those headaches are. What are those nightmares that you're dealing with? And then that's why we're going to focus it around whatever real situations you're dealing with, as Meeta just said. That's got to be the right way. Otherwise, it's just general discussions. We want something that you can have practical application to real day-to-day headaches that you've got, right?
Yeah. The only other thing I would say about today's topics is that it is a whistle-stop headline tour of these 5 areas. But something that we do is to partner with our clients to talk about it in detail, specific to their organization and their challenges. So if you do have an area that you're thinking we need to work on this, need to come and talk to us about it, we can start off on the phone. It doesn't need to be, the clock doesn't need to be on. It can be a chat, and we can work out what you need. Because I think ultimately the first step is knowing what's wrong, and where you want to be. And sometimes knowing what good looks like comes from collaboration and understanding what those standards are out in the industry and expectations as well.
So let's get stuck in, Meeta. I mean, there's a lot to go through here, and that's even without questions. So we want to be able to address whatever, anybody watching this, any issues that they have. So our first topic is about hiring faster through adoption of using the right technology. That's definitely your realm. What are we talking about here? What should employers be doing?
Okay, so first and foremost, the employment market and the recruitment market is going to fly off the charts in the next 3 months. Something like 70% of organizations have said they intend to hire. Some of those will be with a recruitment partner like ourselves. Some of those will be direct. They'll either have managers who are doing it directly along with their day job, or they'll have internal teams. What's important is you're set up for success. So often, and we know about recruitment, it's costly, it's time costly, and it isn't guaranteed to bring that best person in at the end of it. So what are the steps you put in place to eliminate risk of failure? So first and foremost, have your hiring strategy right. Make sure that everyone in the organization who's involved in hiring knows what's expected, how many stages you have, what the timetable for those stages is. Think about when you want that person to start and work backwards, and think about the time, the notice period for people. So if you want somebody to start in 2 months and they might have a month's notice, you need to be starting that hiring process 6 weeks before, and not too long. Yes, go on, Tosh.
So I had a question about Meeta. So it would be useful to know what those steps are, because if we're talking about using the right technology or new technology, I'm old school. I'm afraid to admit, which is, what do? You get a job posting, you put it on various notice boards, you put it on LinkedIn, you put it on lots of free stuff. You get certain types of candidates, or then you go to professionals to get it done because those things haven't worked, and then they either magically produce somebody because they've got the right fit or not. So do you have like a 5-step things that employers should be really putting in place? So they know step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5, like that? That's what I would want to know. Yeah,
let me think about how I can make it 5 steps. Well, first of all, when you're thinking about who you're hiring, think about where that talent lives. Is it on LinkedIn? Is it a personal recommendation from an employee? Is it someone that you put an advert out for and they respond on Reed? Is it a recruitment consultancy who specializes in those roles? Most likely it's going to be all of those. So get moving quickly and have all of those parameters updated and working for you straight away. That's the first thing. So engage with your recruiter partners, get your adverts out. And then when you're bringing people in, be really mindful. People want, first of all, it's a competitive candidate market. Despite the number of redundancies and people who are unemployed out there, the actual pool of availability of the right fit for you remains like a needle in a haystack. So if you want someone, you've got to treat them like gold. You've got to make them feel really important. And this is where hiring fast is important. My recommendation is, if you're going to have 1, 2, 3 stages, however many stages you're going to have, try and do them in one day. Have a morning, have an afternoon, and have an evening. Use technology. So we have promoted something in this lockdown called Audit. It's an online video tech platform. And what it allows organizations to do is it allows them to interview candidates like this, but it would record it. And as we know, the biggest barrier to an interview process isn't the time spent talking. It's when they need to meet another person and then another person, but those people aren't available. Diaries are difficult to lock down. And before you know it, that candidate's found another job. So you spend all the time pulling people from outside, and then you end up realizing that from all the, matching testing, got the right one, and then they're like, sorry, it's taken too long, I'm gone. So really think about what each stage is, what you're trying to achieve from it. So in our world, step 1 is the biographical. Is this person the right fit? Does their story add up? And can we see that person aligning with our journey? Yeah.
In terms of the right fit, how do we, because I've always found that to be the main issue, right? People focus on skills predominantly, actually. Yeah. I know you guys don't. The focus on the skills. Have they got the qualification? Can they do the job? And they come in and it's a blooming nightmare because that fit isn't right. So what sort of aptitudes or what can they put in place to get that right fit? What do you do? What should we as employers be doing?
Yeah, so straight away in your interview process, getting the right fit will be part of the stages. So step 1 is this biographical approach of understanding the individual. It's the whys, isn't it? It's the why are you looking for somebody with these skills? Why did they make these moves? What's important to them? Stage 2, we tend to really drill down into the skills of the role to make sure that their why and then their skills match up. And then stage 3 is where you get the culture right. So each of the members of the team that these individuals are going to meet should come along with a question around culture, whether it's a question around who do you value and why, or we have a dinner party question. Name 6 people you bring along to a dinner party. If you left the room to get the coffee, what would these people say about you? And so then you start to pull those words together and you establish whether they reflect your organization. When your members of the team meet other people in your organization, ask them, when the team meet that individual, ask them what did the responses match up to the values? So it's like a funnel, isn't it? You've got to make sure your culture's right. You've got to make sure your organization has clarity on their skills, on their culture, and what fit looks like. And actually, me, the Odro online recruitment platform has really sped up an employer's ability to have the right people to choose from at the end of a recruitment process. And that's where I'm saying, think about technology. And what we're doing with our clients is, if they don't want to work with us to do the recruiting, but they want to use our platform, we've created a system for that as well. So you're not alone in this. Think about what you need, and then think about who your partners are out there and ask them the questions. There isn't a one size fits all. So make sure that you get the right people working with you. But time kills all deals, and good talent goes quickly. So really think about making don't reduce your stages, just make them closer together. And what you'll find is that the right people will go through to the next stages. It could be over a couple of days.
And how easily can they get that system from you, Meeta?
It's easy as picking up the phone, talking through their needs, and then us giving them a login, showing them how it's done. We can manage it for them, and off they go. It's beautiful because everything's recorded. So it could be that the CEO says, I met someone great. I want your sales director to meet them. I'm going to send you the link. Watch this video. And the sales director says, yeah, I've seen it. I don't need to ask any more questions. You asked everything.
Looking at just the paper exercise of a CV, setting up an interview, all that's really dead unless you would be a time killer by following that process. You can just speed up this process by just streamlining it. And I suppose ideally this is suitable for people that are recruiting regularly, obviously, I would have thought, or not. Is it for anybody recruiting at any stage? They should just have something like this in place. Whether
you're hiring 20, whether you're hiring 1, it's the same process. It's how efficiently and effectively you utilize it. And it is the future. It doesn't have to be the whole process. You can have a handshake if we're allowed to shake hands in the future again, but it's definitely going to be the 80% bulk of the process.
Meeta, I haven't seen that process. It might be a good idea if we did a session on that and walk people through it. Because me seeing that personally and then experiencing what that looks like, obviously it triggers different things in people's minds. So we should, I think, just park that in your mind and see if we can do that with people to at least see what's out there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think we should move on to the hiring for diversity and inclusion, because that currently stands as our most popular choice in the poll. 62%.
You and I are slightly on different sides of the fence on this one, I think, as surprisingly. So do you want to go first or shall I?
Well, I think that hiring a diverse workforce encourages organizations to have more success from their hiring policies and their processes. I think that we want a world in our organization that reflects the world outside. And it's proven that organizations that have a diverse workforce are more successful, they have a competitive advantage. So all roads lead to diversity and inclusion.
So what about the road where actually I don't care what race they are, what sex they are, whether they have a disability, any of those, whatever issues, all I care about is that they're the best person for the job. That's going to be a combination of skills. Let's say I'm a blind man. It's going to be a combination of skills to do the job and then the aptitude test. And that's it. So the almost obligation to make sure that you can tick a box, I'm not sure that is the priority. It's good to have. You're right. It should reflect society. But and as long as the processes or the recruitment process are not excluding those for those reasons, that's fine. But assuming all those things are equal, and that not just picking the best people for the job, that's it.
Yeah. So we're not on opposite sides. I think we're on the same side, and you're doing clause 1 and I'm doing clause 2. Both of these are important, but the fact is, what you said, assuming all these things are equal, they're not.
But they're equal within the organizations, right? For us. So anybody watching this, as long as they've got the right processes in place that don't, indirectly create some sort of unconscious bias. And that's something you can review to check that, or even I could to see whether that's not the case. But otherwise, most people I'm assuming no one's going to exclude people because they fit a certain category or protected characteristic.
Listen, none of this is intended. A lot of it, as I said, is unconscious bias. Some of it can be from the top, and even they don't realize what they're doing. So first and foremost, I would say conduct a diversity hiring audit on your process. Check where the bottlenecks are. Are you looking for people in a diverse environment, or are you always going to a job board or LinkedIn where you're going to get a certain type and a certain background? Diversity. Pick one metric that you're going to measure. You're not going to change everything overnight, but do you want to increase the number of BAME members of your organization, or do you want to readdress the balance between male and female? Get a metric, get a percentage, think about where you want to get to, and then look at your process and establish if there's anything. For example, Tosh, people may not want to have any preconceived biases, but the hours of the organization is 9 to 6 and 9 to 6 only at the office.
Yeah.
So no, there's no intention of being having this bias, but merely by the structure of an organization, it can create that problem.
I mean, which is why those laws are in place in the first place. There's consequences if you take those approaches. And why is that? People stop doing that, and they're not aware of it. Most people will not be blatantly discriminatory in that way.
Yeah.
But they exist. Otherwise, the laws wouldn't exist, and these situations would arise. So I totally accept that. I guess I'm speaking more from a majority point of view. It's just getting the right people in the right way.
I think the Black Lives Matter movement that has, been so prevalent for us in this last 6 months, plus looking at working remotely and understanding what we need to do as a country to get our economy moving again, is about putting good people back in a working role where they can contribute. And that means we don't eliminate people just by their availability to work or by their background. And as I said, many organizations, if they say, I don't care, that's great. But actually what that doesn't mean is they're not working positively towards having diversity and inclusion as one of their objectives. And that's what we're talking about here. So the next thing I would say is make sure if you have a diverse workforce internally, put that on your employer branding, put that on your website. Get them to do videos talking about the environment and what that means, and get your minority workforce to recommend people in. I know it sounds quite specific, but it's going to be different tools that are going to help you continually be filling the funnel with the right people. And of course, culture, skill set, fit, all of that still stands, but you're able to create the right fit from a broader, more diverse funnel of potential talent.
I think there's, from my point of view, from a legal point of view, it's ticking off certain things along the way as you're doing that. And along the way means right at the start, how you advertise, what are you advertising for, where are you advertising?
Yeah, it's not the language.
Pick a certain magazine, maybe exclude certain other areas. So start with those sorts of things, right?
Absolutely.
Have a policy in place, a diversity policy, not so it's just an old handbook that you just stuck in a drawer. Yeah. Because you know what, if you apply these things properly, it's our culture. This is how we do stuff. Yeah. This is how we operate. We don't do these sites. We don't, not have any promotions or experiences or job improvement or professional development or whatever are things we will continue to promote, irrespective of protected characteristics. So have it in writing. It doesn't mean anything legally if you don't implement those things, obviously. Yeah. But assuming that really, it's a genuinely written document and it just reflects how you operate as a business, that is how you do it in the right way. And if somebody then raises a discrimination or exclusion card for some reason, well, you can show all the things you put in place for that not to be the case, right?
Yeah.
So from a legal point of view, so putting protection is doing the right thing and also protecting your interests, because you have to show that you've taken the right approach and trained your staff in that way.
Absolutely. And so it protects and enhances the message.
And I wanted to say a couple of other things is if people get it wrong, there's two things. There's no cap on discrimination compensation awards. Say three things, in fact. The second thing is that they don't even have to be an employee. So if somehow there's something that is discriminatory in the interview process, and I've dealt with a case like that.
And even the advert.
Correct. Even before they've even come for the interview process, you can still be looking at uncapped damages in certain types of situations. So it's really important to get it right. The third thing I wanted to say was, and maybe a lot of employees don't know this, is once you train your staff, they are actually also personally liable for any discrimination. So if there's something in the interview process or if there's something in the workplace that can be counted as being discriminatory and you can show as an employer you've trained your staff to avoid those types of situations from happening, well, then the employer is off the hook and the employee manager or whoever's doing that type of behavior is personally on the hook. So, normally it's obviously always goes to the employer, unfair dismissals and all those sorts of things.
And that's something we're doing a lot of work with our clients in at the moment, is helping them to create a diverse hiring strategy that brings in not only the process, but also the funnel of candidates that would be right for it, but even right through to having sort of pre-hire assessments on personality without any name, age, nothing, doing blind hiring. So the first submission from this candidate is 5 questions which are replied in writing. And so straight away, there's no CV, there's no visual, there's no name, there's no age, there's no background. It's just purely looking at the person on their merits of the role. And you can put questions around skill set, you can put questions around fit and culture in that. So that we are evolving. And ultimately, we talk about skill shortage. I think skill shortage is our next point, but just by opening up your mindsets to a more diverse workforce, you're going to grow the pool of candidates that are available to you, which will overcome skills shortages. Secondly, think about job shares. A lot of people will want to work flexibly now. Think about that, because you would enable home, mums who are at home, really capable, who can only do 9 to 2 to get back in and add value. So that should overcome skill shortages as well. Yes,
I think it's conscious actions and steps and things in place so everybody knows what the score is, if I can put it in a sentence.
Yeah. And we know that Rishi Sunak is creating an immigration policy for attracting skills into this country. Really look at your plan, your 1 year, your 3 year, your 5 year hiring plan, where your organization is going. If you're a people leader, then talk to your CEO, talk to your head of, and say, right, who are we going to need in our organization? Identify the skills. And if there's a gap, then let's start talking about training. Who are the right training partners to deliver that skill set,
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
It's joint up thinking. And the other thing I would say is always be hiring. Even when you're not hiring, always be hiring to overcome the skill shortage. Get your shop window right, get your branding right, get your social media, your Glassdoor, all of the sites that reflect who you are as an organization, your Google reviews. Actually, when somebody looks to come and work for you, they literally do a 360 appraisal on you. They will meet you, and it is a two-way street. These people are choosing your organization as much as you're choosing them. So get all of your shop windows absolutely on point. And that's not about making stuff up. It's making sure that what's good about you is always celebrated, is always put on a Google review, is always put on Glassdoor, and make sure that social media backs that up.
That kind of nicely fits into the next topic, right?
Which is...
Did you do that on purpose, Meeta?
No, I mean, that's flow, and it is a process. But building a strong employer brand brings everything we've talked about into it. But actually,
before we go into that, Meeta, tell me what you think that means, because we were having a discussion about that, right? Before we did this employer brand, what do you see that as being for you? What is it that what do you mean when you use that phrase?
People want to work for an organization that are going to fulfill both their personal and professional goals in life. Obviously, we work because we love to work. Some people work because they need a job. Some people work because their career defines them. Everyone has a different motivation to work. So when you're putting your employer brand out there, you want to deliver what you do, but in a way that shows that your employees are people that you value to come along on that journey and create the success for the organization. So how do you do that? Well, first and foremost, your website is your shop window. So what does your website say? Does it talk about the awards you give to your employees? Does it demonstrate the awards that your employees have won for success in their area of expertise? Does it have a video from your employees saying, this is why I love working for AX Limited? Are your employees trained on how to be ambassadors? Everyone talks about their organization when they work. Do they understand the power they have to attract people to the organization, as well as put people off by the language they have, and for them to understand that they are brand ambassadors? So
I love that. I never even thought of getting my own staff to talk about how they feel at work and those sorts of things. You make assumptions, don't you? And you're right. Sending that message out, it feels quite good internally as an organization, but also externally, it's just sending out the right message. We are what you think we are. This is really how we help people. And this is how we love doing what we do for you, or whatever it is, right?
Yeah. And so if you do, and LinkedIn is another space where you can continually put posts out about what it's like to work for your organization. Because when you reach out to somebody, whether it's a recruitment partner or whether you're doing it directly, and say, we'd love a conversation with you, we think you're the best in class in what you do, you're not just a brand new name. They've seen you, you've connected with them, they've read what you say about yourself, they've read what your people say. It's a warm introduction, and that just moves them into thinking, yeah, why don't we? So ultimately, I'm a firm believer, we're in the business that we're in, talent management, but our attraction element, the recruitment element, is the busiest, because as much as employers want to do all of this and they put the steps in place, keeping it really refined is a challenge. So what I would say is link it in between HR, between marketing, between the team on the ground, between the CEO and whatever awards you do, and get everyone talking about what a great place it is to work.
It's singing from the same hymn sheet, and that comes through training, understanding that we've got the same objectives.
Yeah.
A lot of those things if they're missed, you forget the why. Why are we here? Why do I get up to go to work every day? That's really what it is, isn't it? Everybody understanding that, and what are we trying to do? What good are we putting in the world, or whatever it is that matters for you?
Yeah, and right now, what's changed is that people want to, another survey, I love my surveys and my stats to understand what's going on, but something like 66% of people have said if they were interviewed for a role, they would choose a company that put mental health at the top of the agenda. Whereas we didn't even have those conversations pre-COVID.
No, we didn't. Yeah, that's right. And I was saying earlier, Meeta, that, I think, people get under the misconception that you're going to work because of the money. obviously it's a factor, unless you're working voluntarily or something. But actually, there's lots of other things that motivate employees to work in place, and it comes to do with how they identify with their employer, what are they getting, what are they getting out of that relationship? It isn't just the money, and that comes back to your brand. This is how we do stuff. This is how we care. This is how we operate. This is what we're trying to do. Everyone's aligned on that. You're going to go, sky's the limit, I suppose.
Indeed. And you've got the Goldman Sachs of the world, the chief exec of Goldman said, I'm getting everyone in and that's final. Goldman's set out the stall for who they are. They don't apologize for it. And people know that by working for Goldman's, they've got a golden ticket for an amazing career, an amazing income, probably no time to spend the money they earn. Probably quite a stressful environment, but that's a choice they make. So, don't be afraid of who you are and don't apologize for it. Just be specific about who you are, what you stand for, the whys of why it's important, somebody would want to come and work for you, and then just have that message filter through every stage. And that, again, is something we do for our organizations, is our companies we work with is do a brand audit and say, let's have a look at how you put yourself out to market and to help them become the employer of choice. Again, that saves time, it increases retention, it increases the success of the hiring process and therefore reduces costs. It's a no-brainer, but really do take into consideration your policy around mental health and sing from the hymn sheets about what you're doing for your employees in that space, and also flexible working and helping mums return to work if it's condensed hours and job shares. I think employers have really opened their mind to that, and I think they're going to see great benefit to their organizations from incorporating.
I think my main takeaway that I'm already seeing from this is just having the processes from A to Z. So it sounds boring, doesn't it? The procedures, but I don't mean that. It doesn't have to be that. No. It can be something that's really fun and interesting, because this is our process to get them in the door. This is our process to the interview. This is our process during performance reviews, how to keep them on top. Yeah. This is our process all the way to the employee life cycle, effectively.
Yes, and that
exit. They can even, if there's a scenario where they leave, what do we do after that? There are things you can do to help them as they afterwards. That really creates having those things in place, and then everybody with it being written down, you own it, and when you own it, you have a process and obviously what it creates is habits. And what do habits do? Habits create behaviors. Behaviors create integrity and character.
What matters, you measure. So you have a reference point of what good looks like, and you bring everyone back to that. But what's really important is to know that everyone in their organization probably has an element of all of this in their world. It's just revisiting it, refining it, doing an audit of what needs to be done and bringing it up to scratch. So again, that's something you could do with your team internally. It's something you could reach out to us and we can walk you through the process.
I would say more sort of in your face about it, quite frankly, Meeta. To pick up the phone, speak to Meeta about it. Get whatever you can in terms of a discussion with her. Either she's going to help you do it or she's going to talk you through it. But either way, why not? The resources are here. So yes, you can, figure it out. You're all intelligent people watching anyway. What we're trying to give you is some tips from our experience. We did this last time. If we give 25 years experience and condense it into half an hour, we know the pitfalls. You can either experience them firsthand or learn the shortcut. So I'll pick up the phone and talk to Meeta and find out exactly what we can put in place. If there's any legal aspects involved in it, she'll put you in touch with me, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't have to be extremely costly. It can be, the work we do. We have a blueprint we can give you to go through and do it yourself, or we can partner with you. So there's the bronze, gold, and silver, bronze, silver, gold approach to the level of engagement we have to help you get where you want to get to.
You'll either give them the fish or you teach them how to fish.
Exactly. I'd like to teach them.
Yeah, which makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm just conscious of the time now. We've got our last section here, which is about adapting employment contracts, supporting flexibility and maintaining control. So I think what I wanted to be clear about from the beginning, what I was saying to you about, what is the point of any employment contract? Okay. It is actually to make it very clear what the arrangement is between the employer and employee.
Right. Can I give a bit of background before we go into?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, of course. Go ahead.
So what we're having a lot of conversations about with owners out there and people leaders, and what the reality of what's going on the ground is that there's a lot of anxiety with employees who want to come back to work on a flexible basis. They don't know what their employer's policy is on it yet. Employers don't know where they stand on it yet. And with all of that uncertainty, it's creating anxiety, and it's creating the risk of people changing jobs because the unknown is worse than, you'd rather know where you stand and then work towards that than not knowing where you are at all. And so employers and employees want to get this conversation moving. That's what I feel is happening out there now. So what we're hearing from employers is, yes, we want to have this conversation. We want to afford flexibility. We've seen it can work. But what about the times when we might need to get everyone back in because we've got a really big project or it's got really busy and what worked 3 months ago doesn't work now and we need to get everyone in again? Like, that's what they want to understand, how a contract of employment can support that.
Guess what word I'm going to say?
Reasonable.
I know, I'm so sorry, Meeta.
No, I'm
so,
not.
and it really is that. Just because it's, you know what, the contract doesn't make it set in stone. I know that sounds a bit odd. As long as it's reasonable to make those adaptations effectively. So you know what, you can arrange whatever you need to arrange with an employee. You can put that in writing. The reason you have it in writing is for two purposes. Number one, it's kind of sealed. Psychologically, the employee's got it in writing and there's no issue about a dispute. Number two is if there is a dispute and memories fade, you've got it in writing and that's your backup, right? If it ends up going to court or anything goes wrong, that's the real reason to have a contract of employment, in my view, from a practical point of view. It's just so everybody knows what the deal is. And you can have anything in there. The issue, I think, in reality is so adapting it is easy. Adapting it to whatever the circumstances are in terms of flexibility. If it's a situation of this is what we're doing now, but it might change, we'll put that. Remember the contract, I'm assuming this is applying to not new hires. I'm assuming this is applying to people that are already existing employees. So you can have it in a letter or something to confirm the context in which this arrangement is going to remain in place or what have you.
So what you're saying is that you could have an addendum to the contract, which is an email letter that says this is an addition. And then for new people, they could have it in the existing contract going forward. And that language could be as simple as our organization now has a policy of flexible working, which allows you to work 60% of your time in the office and 40% of your time anywhere else. We do not want anywhere else to be a public place because of intellectual property and security and all the rest of it. So we would want you to work at home for that other 40%. However, if the business deems it necessary, you would be required to return to the work office on a full-time basis with a week's notice. If the business
you'd use my magic word, wouldn't you? If it was reasonable to do so in the circumstances, and reasonable is what you can justify. You're absolutely right. It doesn't need to be a brand new contract even, Meeta. If you think about it, all it needs to be is remember, it's only really relevant if there's a dispute. Yeah. Isn't it? Otherwise, nobody needs to worry about it. Yeah. So that means you want a stranger to read that email and understand exactly what the context of the circumstances are for the change, how long they apply for, why they apply, whatever. Just an email is enough. Yeah, it could be a formal letterhead on your letterhead or just something. You just want to be able to prove to somebody, to a judge effectively, if ever the worst case scenario, this is what was agreed and this is why we are now in this situation. Yeah. That's really easy. And the reality is adapting the contract where it's only a problem when the employee doesn't want to do it. Again, as an employer, if it is reasonable for you to adapt it and the employee is refusing to, well, then it's a disciplinary matter. As long as, again, it's reasonable. Yeah. Because presumably it's a business need rather than just a preference. But in most of these situations, we'll just be reflecting whatever the change that's been agreed between the two people, employee is. And
so I have a question from an organisation, not in the group, but one that came to me before they weren't able to attend today. But they were asking, they don't want to be flexible. They want to have their people back in the office. They're willing to do a shorter week, and they may even do condensed hours, but they're not willing to let people work from home once life is back to normal. What would the situation be if somebody said no to that? What would the situation be?
So we did this in one of our earlier sessions, Meeta. It's quite a more detailed one. But the issue is this: what is the reason they're saying no? Is the reason they're saying no is because they have a disability, whilst the risks of COVID have been significantly reduced, especially with the vaccine rolling out and other things in place, there's still a significant risk to that person. And remember, a lot of it is to do with their perception of it. And the law allows for that in terms of health and safety issues and so forth. So if they say no, well, and you take disciplinary action, that might result in a claim because they have some genuine fears, no matter how misconceived they may be. Those are genuine and authentic. They won't get paid, so which means they won't be paid and they'll be at home. So the starting point would really be, why can't they work from home? If the employer is absolutely insisting on it, why are we? And we covered this before. Obviously, it's different in the workplace, isn't it? If you and me meet up, Meeta, for a drink, it's going to be a real different environment than you and me doing it over this platform and having a drink together. Yeah. There's different things you sort of rub off from each other, or conversations are over here, or soundboards, or quick discussions that are just you just can't match.
Yeah.
But what is, the more you can detail why it's a necessity, the better. But the question is why they're saying no. You have to look at what the reason is and then see how that can be overcome. If it's a healthy, what adjustments can you make?
Yeah.
If it's not,
scenario.
Second.
And because we're at 14 minutes, I'm going to ask you for like the worst case scenario before we try.
Worst case scenario, the employee's saying no, then being completely unreasonable, and then you're going to take disciplinary action and fire them. Another scenario on a par with that is if they've got a disability and they genuinely can't come in. Well, if you can't accommodate them at home, well, then you might need to take other steps like capability or what have you. But the starting point has to be, why can't they work from home?
Yeah.
And if you've got your good enough reasons, then you'll be okay.
Okay. Wow. That was a whistle-stop tour of some real key headline areas to be thinking about for 2021 in your people and HR strategies. We've had a quiet chat room. I hope we haven't bamboozled you with too much. As you absorb, as you have a think about what's important to you, please do pick up the phone, link with us on LinkedIn, and let's keep everyone's worlds winning successfully and happily.
Yep, and please pick up the phone specifically with the processes we were talking about today. Give a call to Meeta. She'll give you really good ideas, or just help you implement those ideas if that works. Okay.
Brilliant. Well, thank you,
everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Joanne.
See you next time next week.
Bye for now. Bye-bye.
Bye.